Coming up tonight on YCN News, local delegates weigh in on the shooting in Paris. Heartland, Vermont officials discuss a shooting range in town. And a new bill may make the mastodon the New Hampshire state fossil. For more news, weather, and sports, it's time for YCN, your local view.
Now, your daily digest of the Dartmouth Lake Sunapee region, southern Vermont, and Windsor County. News, sports, weather, and all that is happening in our area. The news on YCN, your local view.
Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday edition of YCN News. I'm Laura James. As we go to production this evening, two members of New Hampshire's congressional delegation agreed that today's shootings of political cartoonists in a Paris, France newsroom by terrorists is an outrage. 12 people, including a policeman, have died. U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, says France is not alone in mourning the lives lost in this attack and that her thoughts and prayers are with the victims, their loved ones, and the French people. Shaheen said in a statement that she condemns this cowardly act of terrorism. She remains committed to standing united with the nation's allies and the rest of the civilized world against terrorism in all its forms. Also, Congresswoman Annie Kuster concurs, adding that there's no place in our society for such vile acts and no one should ever have to fear for their safety in his or her workplace. She added that she is praying for the swift capture of these cowardly terrorists who must be brought to justice. Kuster continued, "As Americans, we stand with the French people in mourning their devastating loss, and our thoughts and prayers are with the victims' families and loved ones." Lawmakers in New Hampshire and Vermont are back in session this week, and in New Hampshire, contention between House Republicans took center stage today. Former House Speaker Bill O'Brien says fellow GOP members who are loyal to him will push what O'Brien's calling true Republican policies, reports New Hampshire Public Radio today. Meanwhile, recently elected House Speaker Sean Jasper continues to lead the chamber. In other political news today, House lawmakers did return to a policy implemented under the leadership of former Speaker O'Brien. By a vote of 228 to 149, NHPR reports all state representatives will again be allowed to carry concealed weapons into the two state buildings. These buildings are the House Chamber and the Legislative Office Building, both in downtown Concord. Republicans control both chambers of the state legislature following the results of the November general election. When Democrats made up the majority of the House, they banned the right to carry hidden weapons into these state offices. Turning to Vermont news, improvements have been made to buffer the noise at Heartland Shooting Range, and a meeting tonight will focus on this concern of Upper Valley, New Hampshire residents. Vermont Fish and Game spokesperson Daniel Peters tells YCN News today $40,000 in sound barrier improvements have been made at the Hammond Cove Shooting Range. The range opened in November of 2012 and cost about $280,000, according to Peters. Well, tonight's meeting follows an afternoon walkthrough of the shooting range. Future plans for the range will be discussed this evening. After the break, we'll learn about a bill that may make the mastodon the New Hampshire state fossil.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. I'm Laura James. There's a new executive director of Vital Communities, an organization dedicated to ensuring the health and well-being of rural New England residents. Tom Roberts of Heartland, Vermont, will lead this group now. Roberts has more than a decade of successful leadership experience in Upper Valley nonprofits, most recently as a senior philanthropic advisor at the Vermont Community Foundation, and prior to that as executive director of the Ottauquechee Health Foundation in Woodstock. Prior to moving to the Upper Valley in 2002, Tom Roberts worked as an attorney both in a small litigation and government practice firm and for the Homeless Advocacy Project with the Bar Association of San Francisco. He has worked in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors on issues including access to justice, housing, children, and health care, including as homeless coordinator and housing department manager at the San Mateo County Human Services Agency and director of the East Bay Community Foundation of the Oakland Fund for Children and Youth. He holds a bachelor's degree in English from Stanford University and a law degree from the University of California's Boalt Hall School of Law. Roberts will officially begin his work in mid-February of 2015. A longtime principal of Kern Hatton Homes of New England has died, and his career and dedication to students is being remembered. Kern Hatton Homes Executive Director Connie Sanderson says Tom Fauner was one of the school's longest-serving employees. Fauner made many positive contributions to the school and young students during his time there, says Sanderson. Fauner assumed the role of Director of Residential and Educational Services back in 1993, a position he held for 21 years. While serving as head of academics, the 58-year-old spearheaded many projects and initiatives aimed at ensuring the well-being of the Kern Hatton children, helping all students reach their maximum potential, and keeping the organization at the forefront of alternative approaches to childcare and education. These efforts included instituting multi-aged, ability-based groupings in the classrooms, expanding summer programming to include a multitude of camps and excursions for year-round resident students, and starting treasured annual Kern Hatton events and traditions such as Family Days and Spring Fling. Fauner will be replaced on an interim basis by Tom Fontaine, a science teacher at Kern Hatton for almost 20 years. Turning to an education story on a lighter note, the question is, what does a mastodon have in common with a group of fourth graders from Bradford, New Hampshire? Well, a lot if you ask the students in Tom Smith's classroom at Kearsarge Regional Elementary School in Bradford. Well, most fourth graders are concerned about whether or not they'll have outside recess in this cold weather. These students are lobbying state legislators to make the mastodon the official state fossil. And according to the Concord Monitor, they have had significant support behind their effort. Representative David Borden of Newcastle agreed to sponsor the bill and has already visited with students to walk them through the legislative process. Now, the bill may be considered this year. Representative Borden helped them come up with a strategy to get the proposal passed in this session. The class has had to map out meetings with the legislative committee chairs, write letters to lawmakers, and schedule testimony at State House hearings, all in the name of the mastodon. So what's so special about the mastodon? Well, the mammal, similar in appearance to an elephant, walked the earth more than 11,000 years ago, and last year off the coast of Rye, a woman discovered a mastodon tooth and part of the animal's jaw. Over the past few years, several student groups have successfully lobbied to make additions to New Hampshire state symbols repertoire, that according to the Concord Monitor. When YCN News returns, we'll speak with Sean Bowman, who spoke with Peter St. James, New Hampshire's Broadcaster of the Year.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. I'm Laura James. YCN News has just learned that Kearsarge Regional School District in New Hampshire, it will have a 2-hour delay for all schools tomorrow due to frigid temperatures. Speaking of which, let's check out that forecast for the next few days.
Thanks, Laura. Get ready for some very cold conditions tonight as lows will reach -13 with wind chills around -26 degrees. Thursday will be mostly sunny with a high near 11. Wind chills may reach as low as -23. Thursday night will have a 50% chance of snow showers after 9 p.m. Lows will be around 7 degrees. Friday, expect a 30% chance of snow before 2 p.m. Highs will increase to around 27 degrees. And Friday night will be partly cloudy with a low around 6. Turning to our YCN community calendar, we have a few events this week. Thursday, there will be line dance lessons in Lebanon at the Upper Valley Senior Center starting at 6 p.m. On Friday in Hanover, there will be technical help available at the Howe Library from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And in Windsor, Vermont, there will be an acoustic music jam at the Welcome Center from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Check out our full calendar online at ycnnow.com/calendar. A And now it's time for YCN Sports. The results are in. In boys basketball, Stevens and Newport fought in a close and exciting game. However, it was Newport who proved to be stronger with a 63-57 win over Stevens. And in another boys basketball game, Kearsarge and Monadnock competed, with Kearsarge coming out on top 43-31. Great job to our local teams.
Thanks so much, Matt. When YCN News returns, we'll join Justin Dane for another great cooking segment.
The YCN News continues in a moment.